You good? Okay, so today I'm giving a speech on a very controversial subject, drug addiction. In the world today, there's a lot of, the controversy is drug addiction a disease? Is it a choice? But today, okay, first I'm just going to start by defining what a disease is. A disease is a disorder or incorrectly functioning organ, part, structure, or system of the body resulting from the effect of genetic or developmental errors, infection, poisons, nutritional deficiency or imbalance, toxicity, or unfavorable environmental factors. It's also known as an illness or a sickness. So today we're going to talk about the reasons why addiction is a disease. A lot of people are like, no, it's not. They had a choice, which is true to start out, but I feel that it ultimately is a disease. And I feel this way because, one, addicts don't necessarily choose addiction. So they don't, when they're going to do that drug for the first time, say, I think I'm going to get addicted to drugs today. Like that's generally, I can't speak for everyone, but that's not usually how it goes. Two, addiction chemically changes your body. And three, because like any other disease, you don't just get rid of it. Like a lot of people, we'll get to that part in a minute. Okay, much of the information I'm going to share with you today came from www.drugabuse.gov. Okay, so what I was saying about drugs being a choice, sometimes they are a choice at first. Sometimes. Because you never know a person's circumstances. You really don't. Like, sometimes they do go into that drug and it is their choice, but what if they're forced? You can become addicted after the first time. A lot of people think that addiction is just voluntary. They'll say things like, oh, well, they can stop whenever they want. They just don't want the help, which is not necessarily true. And I think this subject is very, it hits close to home for me. And I get frustrated when I see people on social media who just say anything. People who do drugs, their body chemically depends on it. When you do a drug one time, once you inject that drug into your system, it goes to your brain and releases chemicals. It releases dopamine, which is your reward chemical. So dopamine's released when you remember to feed yourself or when you do something that your body likes. You're hanging out with loved ones. Dopamine. People don't get to choose when they are or aren't addicted. They don't get to say, oh, I'm sick of doing drugs, so I'm just going to stop being addicted to it. That's not how it works. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. Sometimes addictions begin after an accident or a surgery. So if I was in a bad accident and my doctors prescribed me to painkillers and my body physically became dependent on those, and I get out of the hospital but I can't get any more of that prescription, a lot of people turn to street drugs because they're cheaper and it does the same thing for their body. Some people find the willpower to seek help, but what a lot of people seem to miss is that some people don't want to. They don't want help. No one ever takes a second to really look at the underlying mental illness that usually comes with drug addiction. Like some people get so depressed that they do drugs, and that drug is the only thing that can make them happy. That drug is that drug to them, their family's down here and the drug's right here because this is what makes it better. And it takes a lot for people to see it like that because from the outside, it's just, oh, they shouldn't have did drugs in the first place. Oh, well. Addiction does change your body chemically. People seek that high that's caused by the chemicals in your brain because of the temporary euphoria that you reach. So euphoria is a feeling of intense happiness. And you can just think of something that makes you really, really happy. Like something that just makes you smile, whether it's sleeping or eating or being with someone that you love. Just think of that and then think about what your life would be like if you had to give that up. a lot of people say, well, they shouldn't have picked up the drugs in the first place. Well, then they should look for help if they need it. So what I tell people whenever I'm to that counter argument is, how many of us in here have ever been an emotional eater? You were real sad or stressed out, and you just needed that food. So what I always tell people is, like, okay, say my food of choice was ice cream. When I get sad, I want some ice cream because ice cream makes me feel better. Okay, so I keep eating that ice cream, and then it becomes a problem because now I need the ice cream every time I get upset. And then I get diabetes. And then I need an insulin shot for the rest of my life for my organs to function properly. Would you want people in your face saying, should put down the ice cream, it's your fault, it was your choice? Yes, it's my choice, but now that I depend on this ice cream, that's a little bit dramatic because it's really not the same. But you guys know what I mean. And then that goes back to my everyone copes differently. People who do drugs are their way of coping. Our ways of coping could be music or food, which both release dopamine. Exercise and sex release endorphins, which is the equivalent of taking morphine. So it really is, we all cope differently. You don't just get rid of drugs. When an addict's brain changes chemically, their ability for self-control and resistance diminishes. So the control that they have over saying, oh, okay, I want to stop, it doesn't matter because their brain is telling them, no, go get the drug, go get the drug. Things that it gets to the point where things that used to be pleasurable to them aren't as pleasurable anymore because they found something that's better than that. Just like diabetes, heart disease, or an STD, even when we make a choice that isn't good for us, we don't get to just undo it. Okay, so a recap. Addicts don't always choose addiction. Addiction chemically changes your body. You don't just get rid of it. I hope that through this speech tonight, you're able to gain some perspective on the terrible world of addiction, or just even a little bit of insight. Everyone's different and everyone has their opinions and reasons for feeling how they do, but this is how I feel about it. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, guys.